Namaste and good evening. In today's class, we are going to talk about linguistics. Today, especially, I'll cover what is language, that means definition of language, its feature and function in short. Similarly, in the next section, I'll talk about what is linguistic, its branches, main branches, and important distinction in linguistics. Okay, let's begin with the definition of linguistics. Commonly, in general sense, linguistic is the study of language. It means it studies language. But when we get this definition, a question arises in our mind. What is language then? Is language human specific? Do animals have languages? And so on. Let's try to answer these questions. And let me begin with many definitions given by many scholars. The first one, taken from Sapir, language is purely human and non-instinctive method of communicating ideas, emotion, and desire by means of voluntarily produced symbol. Let's see the highlighted words: purely human, communicating ideas, emotion, and desire. And another word that I haven't highlighted is voluntarily produced. Voluntarily. Let's go to the next definition. It says language is the system of arbitrary vocal symbol which permit all people in a given culture or other people who have learned the system of that culture to communicate or to interact. Let's see here also. System, arbitrary, vocal symbol, communication, etc. Another definition is here in Chomsky's syntactic structure. It says language is a set which can be finite or infinite of sentences, each finite in length and constructed out of a finite set of elements. Maybe talking about principal and parameter theory. From finite set of rules, we can generate infinite number of sentences. Let's go to another definition. It says language is a system of arbitrary vocal symbol used for human communication. Yes, it is widely agreed definition. Again, I will come to this definition. Look at here, language term, system, arbitrary, vocal symbol, and human communication. So from this definition, what we can conclude is language is the voluntary vocal symbol of human communication. We use language voluntarily for our communication, and it can have many features about which we are going to discuss right now. So simply we can conclude language as the voluntarily vocal system of human communication. So let's talk about features of language. Feature here means the essential characteristics of human language that can help us to distinguish any human language from animal communication. Human language and animal communication. Note down the term human language, animal communication, or non-human language system. Generally we call is animal communication. So any language should comprise some feature to be a language. That means they are duality of structure, creativity, productivity, arbitrariness, interchangeability, specialization, displacement, and cultural transmission, according to Hockett. So, in the linguistic arena, these features are noted down, and on the basis of these features, we characterize language. So let us talk about them in short. What is duality of structure? So language possesses the property of having two levels of structure: phonological level, which is related to pronunciation and transcription of pronunciation, their place of articulation, manner of articulation, and such other thing. And next part is grammar. It begins from word grammar to sentence grammar and even till discourse level. But we are talking here grammar level. So sounds are combined with one another to form meaningful unit such as words. And we have to negotiate the position of word to find meanings. So at least two levels are imagined: phonological level and grammatical level in any language. So creativity is the another characteristics of language. We know that we can create lots of things, lots of ideas that somebody said or not said, we heard or not heard. So we can take example of new song, new poetry, novel, new expression, etc. So it says language can be used to send messages we have never said or heard before. We can create our own expression to say something and even to understand something. It is believed that even perceptions are different. So creativity is a unique feature of human language. So language is creative in that it makes possible the construction and interpretation of new signal by its user. Even the meaning of basket in our context and foreign context will have different meaning. So people will interpret that on the basis of their experience, their understanding, their knowledge, and so on. So creativity, there should be creativity in language, not the repetition of same thing. Next feature of language is arbitrariness. It means the word rook or tree and the thing tree, particular thing, that tree has no connection. Dog and kukur, dog and kutta has no one-to-one connection. It is convention. So it is arbitrary. Our nose can be called something else. This means different sounds are used to refer to the same object in different languages. That's why language should have feature of convention, arbitrariness. The word given to particular thing, particular concept, particular feeling, particular idea is only convention. You can see expression expressed by Shakespeare, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So rose can be called lily and many other is only convention. Another feature of language is interchangeability. It means all members of a speech community equally share the knowledge of the language. So not only able to produce, that people of that community produce messages, but also able to understand. So to understand Nepali, to understand English, you need to share certain conventions, certain feature of that language by both speaker and hearer. So, but it is not present in animal communication. That's why interchangeability means some sort of convention, some sort of rule, some sort of feature of language should be shared by speaker and hearer both. Or they should belong to the same speech community in technical term. Next feature is specialization. Language is specific to human, not in other animal. So it's a verbal also. We speak, we have such type of organs in our body, but not in other animal. So it is species specific. You can see the cartoon I have taken from internet. A boy, maybe it's a girl, asks a question, do you talk? It's a parrot. The picture says, yes, but I don't understand what I'm saying. This animal, other animal also sometimes seem responding, but they don't understand the expression used by them. But human being, they convey some message in symbol, in words, especially verbally, and they have certain meaning, underlying meaning also, denotative, connotative meaning also. On the basis of that, they understand what the speaker is saying. So it is species specific or specialized human being. Next feature of language is displacement. Displacement. So using language, we can talk about past, talk about future, talk about present, talk about distant thing. That's why it is only human being who can use language. We can talk about past, present, future, near object and distant object, etc. So language, human language enable their user to symbolize object, event, and concept which are not present in time and place at the moment of communication. For example, we can talk about Gautam Buddha. We can talk about North Pole. We can talk about America from Nepal and other parts. So displacement in the sense of time and space. Historical thing, present thing, future thing, even future thing. Near object, near thing, near person, or distant object, distance person, or distant thing. We can talk about this. So language should possess this feature, displacement. I'm not going to explain this all. You can see the slide and you can understand. So another feature, most important feature of language is cultural transmission. Language itself is a part of culture, we know that. In animal, this feature is transmitted genetically. They have special ability. But in case of human being, we learn language and culture is transmitted through language in our case. And human being transmit culture from one generation to another generation through language. So here we can say that language is a tool to transmit culture in case of human being. Let's not discuss this one. We are virtually having this class. You can read out this thing. I'll simply read out this. No matter how eloquently a dog may bark, he can't tell you that his parents were poor but honest. See, you can talk about displacement here. You can talk about emotion here. And a rose by other name would smell as sweet. You can talk about what here? Arbitrariness, or convention. So you can see, do we have language, animal? They've already discussed animal. They don't have language, but they communicate. So it's called animal communication. They can hardly use their vocal sound, verbally they can hardly talk. That means, and they can only talk about few things, not many more things. You can imagine, what if there were no languages? Would you communicate your feeling, your idea? Can we meet in this way virtually or something else? So let's talk. If we are distinct, then we should have, or if language has role to play, then what sort of function does a language have? Let's try to see, or short glance, have a short glance over function of language. Informative function of language. So we simply talk about information. We we express some ideas and some information to other. Interpersonal, we can communicate by language. Performative, it's somehow shows our social status or control the reality on some special occasion. Emotive, as simply we express our emotion, show sympathy, get sympathy, empathy, etc. Fatigue communion or fatigue function. In fatigue function, we simply try to socialize or try to build relationship with other. Recreational function, we try to enjoy via language. And metalingual, language is used for language itself. With the help of language, we talk about language, that is metalingual function. These are some function of language which have played crucial function in understanding language. So let's start another section 2 of this lecture. Here I'm going to talk about what is linguistic. You have heard, you have read, and simply earlier also we tried to discuss about linguistic studies language. So let's see here what are the ideas mentioned here. Linguistic can be defined as the scientific or systematic study of language. Study of language, we said earlier, here is systematic study of language. So it is a science in the sense that it scientifically studies the rules, system, and principle of human language. So we collect data, we go to the field, we collect data, we make some sort of tool, we use some method, and we synthesize, we infer some ideas out of data, and we display finding, and it studies this thing. That's the definition of linguistic. Commonly, linguistic has two main purposes. One is it studies nature of language and it tries to establish a theory of language and describe language in the light of theory established. This is theoretical function of theoretical purpose of linguistic. What do we do here? Studies nature of language and we establish theory and we describe language in relation to theory. So it has another function also. It examines all the form of language in general and seeks a scientific understanding of the language in which it is organized to fulfill the need it serves and function it performs in human life. So language in relation to society or human life. So this is another function of linguistic. So all form of language in general, and seeking scientific understanding of the ways in which it is organized to fulfill the need it serves and function it performs in human life. Language has certain function, as we discussed earlier as well. So we relate linguistic theory with human life. This is another function of language. So, synthesizing the definition of linguistic or purposes of linguistics, we can talk about some branches. There can be hundreds of other branches. Let's see some branches, and they are not mutually exclusive also. They are interrelated. Number one, theoretical and applied linguistics, synchronic and diachronic linguistics, general and descriptive linguistics, microlinguistics and macrolinguistics, psycholinguistic and sociolinguistic. These are common branches that are imagined in the field of linguistics. We'll talk about them in short. See, theoretical linguistics. See the left hand side in the table: phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, pragmatics. And out of this, it generates theory. So phonetics means sound system, language means sound interaction, word for morphology means word, syntax means sentence formation, semantics means meaning, pragmatics means language in use. Studying these areas, theoretical linguistics propounds theory of linguistics. So from even we can go further from phonetics to pragmatic level or discourse level, we can say. So applied linguistics is somehow different. It's a consumer of theory. See, theoretical linguistics: phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, lexicology, semantic, etc. Out of this, what does applied linguistics do? It simply from psycholinguistics to study mind, some psychic thinking of human being, neurolinguistic to study brain system, nerve system, language policy and planning, the use of language and its policy, ethnolinguistics to study diversity in the group, dialectology using varieties, studying varieties, sociolinguistic, society and human life, language. So this is the area of applied linguistics. So mostly all types of linguistics are applied linguistics except theoretical linguistics. Let's see diachronic and synchronic and diachronic version of linguistics. So by the name suggests, synchronic linguistics means the study of language at particular time. For example, we can study different languages at present in 2020. So diachronic means over the time from 19th century to 20th century, for example. It studies development of language over time. So synchronic linguistics is some parallel to descriptive linguistic or general linguistic, and diachronic linguistic is comparative linguistic or historical linguistic. Diachronic in relation to time, synchronic in relation to place, we can say in simple sense. General versus descriptive. General, by the name suggests, you can see studying language in general, studying particular language, descriptive. Supplies the concept and categories in terms of which particular language are to be analyzed and provides the data which confirm or refute the propositions and theories put forward in general linguistics. So descriptive means describe particular language. General linguistics studies general property of that language in general. And next one is micro and macro. Micro, micro was a very common term, and macro. Micro is narrow view and concerned solely with structure of language system in itself and for itself. It is somehow close to theoretical linguistics. On the other hand, macro adopts the broader view and concerned with the way language are acquired, stored in brain, and used for various functions, interdependence of language and culture, physiological and psychological mechanism involved in language behavior. So macro is related to somehow applied aspect. Theoretical, micro, and macro is applied aspect. So it has lots of areas. So let's see again, microlinguistics, related to theoretical linguistics, theoretical part, and macro applied part. Psycholinguistic, sociolinguistic, neurolinguistic, discourse analysis, computational linguistic, applied linguistic. These come under macrolinguistic. Again, you can see if you have confusion, diagram, micro and macro. Micro is pure linguistic and macro is applied or somehow related to other discipline as well. Now see psycholinguistic and sociolinguistic. It's very common. See psycholinguistic language in relation to mind it studies. But society in relation to language. So there's a common definition. Language in relation to society talks about this. Okay, let's go ahead. With the conclusion, language, the scientific study of human language, and linguistic is study of language in general. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening my